Yes. So, final, we've done the summing up. Here are some questions. There may be more. When you do the comprehension exercises, you can have up to 30 to 40 questions from each text. But then, here I have put some important questions for you. Why did Addison visit the Westminster Abbey? As you know, he was fond of, he liked to, and he says that whenever he is in serious humor, he likes to visit, he likes to go by Westminster Abbey. And then, as he describes the happenings of one day on which he visited the Westminster Abbey. What did he find on the graves? Know the answer? In short, he found that most of them contained only the date of birth and the date of death, while some had much more. And then, what were his observations while digging the graves? This is a very important paragraph. Look at the lines very carefully, read it again and again, and you will be able to answer the question. His observation. The first observation was regarding the mention of the birth and death. The second observation was regarding the kind of bones that came up when he was digging the graves. And then you have another phrase, magazine of mortality. Try to go through the book, try to go through the essay, read this essay carefully, read this phrase and explain why does he call it the magazine of mortality. What are Addison's observations about monuments? You say, monuments, how should they be erected? What kind of monuments are there with which he is familiar? Why does he not approve of the monument of Admiral Sir Cloudesley? And finally, why does he appreciate the Dutch for their monuments? Then coming to the last, what light does this essay throw on reflections about mortality? What are his final thoughts? Final thoughts about how death levels all, death equals all, and what will be the final outcome. How will all the dead become contemporaries? So, read the essay, go through the important lines, a word about comprehension. You have to read every text at least 3 times. When you read it for the first time, you read it for just skimming. You just go through the text and try to see what you can make out of it. The second time, you go in for some serious reading. And for the third time, when you read it, you have a clear impression of what the text contains. When you take up the question answers, you go back to the text. This is for comprehension. When you go back to the text, you read it again and again and you find the answers. This is how you do comprehension exercises. Then you go in for difficult words. And try to make out what each phrase means. And when you do critical appreciation, you take up the lines, you write in prose. In poetry, you change it into prose, but in prose, when you change it into simpler language, and then you go in for critical comments. Is that clear? But for reference to context, the first lines will be, these lines are taken from this text by this author. The text and the author has to be mentioned, otherwise you don't get any marks for explanation. If the text and the author is mentioned, then the explanation and then the critical comments. So I complete this essay. Thank you. Have a nice day. We will take up the next essay tomorrow.